This is lesson 2.4, activity 2, part 2. We're going to be focusing on page 2 right now. So now, after your rereading, you should understand more about the process of natural selection. What is natural selection again? It is the process by which the distribution of traits in a population changes over many generations. So our understanding of this now should be able to help us answer the chapter 2 question, which is how did the trait for increased poison level become more common in the newt population? So natural selection is the name of the process where the distribution of traits changes over time. Our question for chapter 2 is how did this trait of increased poison level become more common? So it's directly tied to natural selection. So in order to answer this question completely, we're going to take another look at the claim additions and see which one is best supported by evidence. And this is going to help us make the most complete and accurate explanation. So claim additions, don't let that confuse you because it sounds confusing. So in first chapter, we had some claims to answer why the newt population became more poisonous over time. And we've been adding to those claims, making that explanation more complete. So that's what that means by claim additions. So what you're going to do is you're going to answer these questions, and then you're going to pause the video, and then we're going to talk about it. So complete these questions. So to help a little, um, some people think the cause of the change in the newt population is that the more poisonous newts live longer than the other newts, and other people think the cause of the change in the newt population is because more poisonous newts reproduced more than the other newts. And the effect is that more newts now have the trait poison level. So there's this claim right here. The less poisonous newts, or not claim, explanation is the less poisonous newts died and more poisonous ones lived. So you're going to add to this statement to make it more accurate. So write the less poisonous newts and explain what you think happened, and then write and the more poisonous ones, and then explain what happens. Yeah, you may think it's as simple as they just died or lived, but why would they die? Why did the less poisonous newts die? Why are there less of them? And why are there more poisonous ones? Why did those ones live more? So explain that here, and then choose which claim addition you think provides the most accurate explanation, and then come back and watch the video. It's going to be about 3 minutes and 20 seconds to start the video back. All right, so now that you've completed page 2, we're going to talk about it a little bit. So if we focus on this statement right here, this statement is saying that less poisonous newts get eaten and more poisonous newts don't. So the more poisonous ones just keep living, so there are more of them. That's not untrue, but it's not the whole story either. So adaptive traits are becoming more common because individuals with adaptive traits reproduce more and pass on other traits. The non-adaptive traits are becoming less common because individuals with non-adaptive traits are more likely to die without reproducing. So the less poisonous newts dying has to do with that being the less poison being a non-adaptive trait, and the more poisonous newts living has to do with the more poisonous newts being an adaptive trait. So your explanation would be explaining, okay, well, if you have a non-adaptive trait, why are you more likely to die? Or if you have an adaptive trait, why are you more likely to live in this certain scenario that we're talking about here? So in this, I would be projecting the poll to see what the class said, but we're just going to kind of skip that. And neither of the claim additions is complete here. So the newts with high poison levels don't live forever. So at some point they would die. They don't just live forever. So then what would happen? Like, why would the newts still be poisonous if they don't live forever? So it's not a complete explanation. And then um, this one says that they reproduce more than other newts. Well, they can't reproduce quickly. Like it just happens at a natural pace. If they live longer, they will reproduce more, but they can't reproduce more often. So this isn't a complete explanation either. So neither claim is accurate on its own. Um, so we need to have a different claim addition, and that is that poison level 10 is the most common because the newts with this trait were able to live longer and reproduce more than the other newts. So, like I said before, it's about both that they were able to live longer and able to reproduce more. So, it's not just living longer that makes you more the population to change, the distribution of the trait in the population to change over time. It's that they live longer and then they have the ability to reproduce more. So if we go to our explanation, initially in 1.6, which is in the black, we said the newt population became more poisonous because the snakes in this environment cause poison to be an adaptive trait. And then now we would add that poison level 10 is the most common because newts with this trait were able to love longer. That's funny. Love longer and reproduce more. Well, that's not necessarily wrong. But anyways, so the poison level 10 is the most common because newts with this trait were able to live longer and reproduce more than the other newts. So the presence of the snakes in the environment is what caused poison to be an adaptive trait. And the level 10 adaptive trait is most common because these newts were able to live longer and reproduce more than other newts. So this leads us to a key concept, and that is that individuals with adaptive traits are more likely to live longer and have offspring. Individuals with non-adaptive traits are more likely to die without having offspring. So this makes a whole lot of sense, and this is why it's called natural selection, because it naturally happens. If you have a predator and you're more likely to live because you have an adaptive trait, you're naturally selected to live longer and have more offspring. And you pass those traits down to those offspring, and they will have similar traits to you. And assuming the environment hasn't changed, they will also live longer and have more offspring. And so, over 50 generations, the population will primarily exist with the adaptive traits, the ones that allow you to live longer and have more offspring. Now, if the environment were to change dramatically, things might be different. But in this scenario, this explains why the poison level trait is more common in the newt population. Make sure that you press hand in when you're done with page 2.